And we are live. Okay, so it's David Leigh here from the James Bond dossier. Probably if you're tuning in, you recognise my ugly face by now. This week, rather than having Bill on, I've gone for somebody else. And oh, hi Bill, I know that you're watching, so thanks for tuning in. This week I have got the Indiana Jones of Bond commentators on. He is well known for the Bond memes blog. He's more recently the James Bond food blog. He is author of two James Bond cookbooks, the latest of which was published at the end of last month. So I'd like to welcome Edward Biddulph, and I am loving your new book. And I think many other Bond fans will find it a fascinating read. It's Double O Dining, a James Bond cookbook.
Well, thank you, and thanks for buying the book, and thanks for having me. It's always good to see the books in the wild, and that all my efforts haven't been in vain.
Not at all, not at all. No, in fact, one of the things I really like about the book is that you don't actually have to use it as a cookbook. You don't even need to know how to cook, because it's full of details about the meals that Bond enjoys, mainly in the books, but the few occasions that he eats in the films as well. And there's even a chapter, and I think it's called "How to Eat Like James Bond." So if you just prefer to enjoy just consume the contents of the book, you'll at least know what to order.
Yes, so, I mean, yes, it's a bit of a mixed bag. My book, yes, as you say, it's not just a cookbook. I think a lot of cookbooks will just focus on the nitty gritty of the recipes, but it's part social history, part Bond history, and Bond reference, and a bit of a travelogue. Some of my holiday snaps over the years have slipped into the book. 2018 or 2019. As you know, David, I took the Goldfinger tour, the literary Goldfinger tour through France, and to Geneva, and some of the photographs of and experiences have made their way into the book. I had been meaning to write up that journey as a separate item, but in the end I decided, well, let's combine everything. Let's create a new edition of the cookbook, a licensed cookbook from the previous one, and put in extra detail. So as you say, you don't ever have to. Yes, actually, well done, Gatsby. And yes, I mean, if you don't want to cook the recipes, cook the food, that's absolutely fine. But there's still plenty of food for thought as well.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. Yeah, and in fact, I'm not sure if I've actually told you this before, but we've actually known each other for quite a long time. Although I think I've only ever met you once.
Yes, I think so.
That was the night before the Skyfall premiere.
Oh yes, that's right. Yes,
yeah, the MI6 event. Yes, and so I remember when I think it was Paul told me that you were attending that, so I was quite pleased, because I'd been in contact with you before, because originally when I wrote my drinks book, I was going to do a book on the food of Bond as well with my brother, and then I found your book, and so I bought it, and I thought, well, okay, I'll just stick to the drinks. I'll leave the food to you, and your contact details weren't in the book, but your photographers were. So I think it was her website. So I contacted her via her website and managed to get an email address for you, and then I found out that you were doing Bond memes as well, which you're not really doing that anymore, are you?
No, I came to a point where I felt I was dead it all, really. I was starting to go over the same sort of ground, and also I found it slightly frustrating. I mean, I suppose all bloggers and Bond commentators feel the same. That you say something, you put it out there, and it gets some attention, but then time passes, and then the same, and then people asking the same questions, and you think, well, actually, if you just read what I'd written, then you wouldn't be asking all these questions. You wouldn't, things go, there's conversations on social media, and you think, well, I've said it all. I haven't, and I felt like I was going to repeat myself. So so I thought I'd just put that to one side, and I hadn't really. No, it's still live, and all the articles are up there. So but yeah, I decided to go back to the food and concentrate on the food. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And so when you were doing the book, have you just taken have you taken pages from or blog posts from the blog and put them into book form, or what was the process for you? And when you set up the blog, the new blog, was it with the idea of producing the new book?
I think that was probably in the back of my mind. Ultimately, that a new edition of Licensed to Cook would come out of that. But it wasn't. I didn't have a timetable. I thought, well, let's just with James Bond's memes, I was trying to post every week, and that was another reason why I thought, as Ian Fleming would say, I ran out of puff. And it was quite a schedule, but with the food, I felt that I wasn't committing myself to a weekly post, and that's when I felt like putting something up, and it was a slow burner in terms of building up another selection of recipes. When I years ago when I prepared Licensed to Cook, I actually had I've got a master book actually, which is unpublished. So when my archive goes off to some university, Oxford University, or the Lily Library, then one of the items will be a bound copy of all my recipes, which didn't go when I was preparing Licensed Cooking, and not all those recipes appeared in that first edition, and because it took a while to really test and try out, and
I can imagine. It's not like you can do 10 recipes a day or something like that. It's
no, that's right. And of course, I do have the day job as an archaeologist, so there's only so much time I could put into it. And that book was also was self-published, so I did everything myself. The following finding is, I managed to find a publisher, Manor Media, and which is taking a lot of pressure off me when preparing this book, which is absolutely great. Now, so this Double O Dining includes some of the unpublished recipes. I didn't have time to put into Licensed to Cook. It also contains some of the recipes I have on the website, and I'll just warn viewers that I'm going to start to take off some of the recipes that appear in the cookbook from the website. I haven't done that yet, but I'll probably do it gradually. It's to sort of make the cookbook a little bit more exclusive than it perhaps is. And I also decided to revisit some of the recipes in Licensed to Cook, and I gave the some text a little bit of a tweak. If you like, I reheated some of those dishes, and yeah, so it's a combination of all these. And of course, as I wanted to put a little bit more of the travel and a little bit more of the experiences, the actual locations and sights and sounds really in the book as well. So it's a little bit of everything.
Sorry, I muted myself. I've seen in the comments that there's an echo, and I think it's because my sound is routing funny on my computer. So sorry about that. I did warn Edward that we're renowned for having technical issues. So there it is. Let me just see if I can route my audio better. That's weird. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Oh dear,
Can you
sorry
hear
about that, everybody, and especially to you, Edward. It must be a bit unnerving when the host suddenly disappears.
me? No, it's fine actually. I've attended to. I mean, I'm with everyone going online for things like conferences and things. I mean, I attend lots of conferences as an archaeologist, and yes, it's been a big learning curve, and there's been lots of technical issues with which. So this is all pretty part of the course.
Yeah, well, all the same, apology. I should have checked before, but I hadn't realised that the sound wasn't coming through my earpiece. It was coming through the computer speakers. And okay, Tim, yes, and yeah, Tim, you made it this week. Well done, and thanks for that. Okay, right. Now I can't remember where we were. So,
Um,
yes, you were talking about the self-publishing versus having a publisher, and
yes.
yeah. So, which I had wanted to ask you about, but I think you covered that. But one of the other things, you got Andrew Lysett to write the foreword. And
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
great to see because I hadn't even thought of asking anybody to write a forward for me. And I did notice that he said that maybe somebody would ask him to write a forward for a Bond drinks book. So yeah, I may take him up on that at some point.
Yes.
How did that come about?
Well, I was very lucky to have Andrew write a forward for me. I felt it needed someone with some gravitas, with some standing in not just the Bond community, but more widely. I've known Andrew for for a while. I simply, I mean, I've met him at various Bond events. I think the first time I met him was at was it might be approaching 10 years ago now. There was an event at Bond event at Whitstable in Kent, and Steve Cole, the young Bond author, was speaking, and and Andrew Lysett was talking as well, and that was and there was a little bit of a reception there as well. So and I got chatting with him, and we and that's his masterpiece. Still my go-to reference for biographical details.
Yeah, it's a fantastic biography. I agree with that completely. Yes,
and I've bumped into him on and off since at various other events since then, and we've exchanged the odd correspondence as well. So I thought, well, who better than and to write a forward from a book, but it was still with some trepidation that I sent an email saying, would you like to do that? And I was fully expecting to say, well, I'm too busy, the polite refusal. But he very gladly did that, and I'm well. If there's one thing that takes the book above the usual sort of crowd of Bond related material out there, it's
like mine, you mean?
no, certainly not. Certainly not. No, but I mean, there are a lot of there's a lot. I do collect. I mean, I don't collect the toys. I don't collect the merchandise. But I do collect the books. Any book related to Bond, and not just first editions and things like that. But I sometimes even then I still have to think, well, do I really need this this essentially fan written book that doesn't really add anything to anything. But I mean, I mean, your drinks book is certainly not in that category. It's absolute essential reference, and I do go to it.
Thank you. I wasn't digging for a compliment, but thank you.
Well, no, I'm glad to. I'm happy to say it, and I don't. I mean, and it's important for anyone who reading my book and they want, well, what drink shall I have? What drinks shall I have with this? Well, there's only one authority on that, and that's an actual book, and so the two I think would work really well together. I mean, I do have one. Yeah, I do have one drink in there, which you may have noticed. Recipe for eggnog,
Yes.
which is a film reference. It's of course eggnog is served on Her Majesty's Secret Service, and because it contains eggs, so I thought, well, I couldn't not include that because
I don't think that's actually in my book.
No. Well, it's a little it's slightly out there. But of course my version doesn't include whatever sleeping draft Blofeld slips in there to before
completely inauthentic then.
Yes, that's right. Well, yes, I mean, of course I do try to get the authentic taste, but there are some limits.
Yeah, it's like a champagne doesn't taste the same without Benzedrine.
Yes, well, that's right. And yes, I'm exactly. Yes, I haven't. I haven't tried that either. But yes, I mean, there's a sort of there's one can only go so far with reconstructing the Bond experience, but yeah. So yeah, I don't do drinks because that's you've covered that perfectly. There's absolutely no need for me to go into that.
No, we're a good match. We're a good match. Yeah. And how do you go about doing your research? Because I mean, you go in really deep when you're looking for recipes from Ian Fleming's time, and it almost seems like it's forensic archaeology.
Yeah. Well, I suppose this is where the archaeologist in me comes out really, because I'm like an archaeologist, like me. I'm trying to reconstruct the past. I'm trying to reconstruct the past is a little bit more recent than what the times I usually talk about. But yeah, I'm reconstructing Ian Fleming's past and his world, and so for food it means going back to those old long forgotten recipe books, going back to old newspaper columns on food, and any other general reference books about food, and try to try to look at those and assess what's going to be the most appropriate thing when reconstructing the sort of experience that Bond would have had. So if he's in America, Bond's in America, and he has the classic example is the Brizola that he has in Diamonds Are Forever, and that's I mean
that's a pretty laborious dish.
Yes, yeah, that's right. It takes some preparation, and to get that right, I knew I had to go back to some American source for that, and actually first establish what it is, because when I read the Bond, the Bond books initially, there were some things which I had absolutely no idea what they were, but they sounded very sophisticated, sounded very impressive, and that's one of them, this Brizola. And so I managed to track down some information about it that from a source that dates to the roughly to the time that Bond had his Brizola, and then I tried to construct how it was cooked, and making some adjustments for cooking in the home as opposed to in a restaurant or an outside on a griddle pan or something like that. So it's I think what I've done is a fair representation. It's not quite the sort of cut of meat that Bond would have had, but it's a little bit of modern convenience plus the what I hope is a fairly authentic taste.
Excellent.
And preparation method.
It is one of the things I haven't tried. So maybe one of these days when I've got, is it like 5 hours in the oven or something?
Well, yes, well, something like that, and then it's marinated, and then it's marinated, and it's then you can put it up and then cook it again on the barbecue. So it's good in a way. It's a good barbecue dish. You can make it over the evening before, night before, and stick it in the fridge, and then next day you've got your meat ready to put onto the barbecue, and yeah, the end result is well worth it. It's one of the recipes I do have quite a few times.
Okay.
I've tried more than once.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
In fact, is there a favourite recipe that you have from your book?
Well, that's yeah. I mean, that's tricky. I mean, there's some of the things I've done quite a few times. I suppose you'd count those as my favourites, like oyster stew, as eaten in Grand Central Station in New York, and of course, scrambled eggs. But I suppose that doesn't count. I mean, everyone has scrambled eggs, but I do cook scrambled eggs as most of the time with a very butter-rich, Fleming approved sort of way.
We've just got a comment. Tim says, I only use organic free-range eggs in my scrambled eggs. That's good for you. I love scrambled eggs myself, and we actually get our eggs from a friend up the road, and when people ask us where we get our eggs from, I can actually name the chickens.
All right, yes, that's excellent. Yeah, I mean, what I like about what I'm finding is that the and eggs is a case in point that I now regularly buy the Maren's eggs that Bond has in from.
Oh, you can get them, can you? Yeah.
Yes, and for of course for a long time they're pretty much impossible to get. Only very only purchased from specialist breeders. But where I live, it's it's not it's a bit of middle of the countryside, but yeah, there's a local convenience store near me, and it has Moran's eggs there.
Oh, and, fantastic!
And I suppose that's that just shows you that actually Bond's food, certainly in the novels, is once it was unheard of for most of the Fleming's readers. It was inaccessible. It was just some sort of luxurious sort of treat for a lot of people. But now it's pretty much everyday food, and there's very little which I can't get fairly easily, and even even some of the some things like seafood, so the sort of the stone crabs or the soft shell crabs. Those are perhaps a little bit more tricky to get at. But a good thing with online retailing is that you can get pretty much everything, anything you want. And so the only thing I haven't managed to track down, and I haven't, this is a recipe for the future, is snake.
Okay.
If you remember at the end of The Man with the Golden Gun, the novel, they're in the mangrove swamp, and Scaramanga starts. He kills a snake and starts chomping on it, and Bond says, "I prefer mine fried with butter," or something like that. That's on my to-do list.
Okay.
But I haven't managed to get hold of any snake yet.
Yeah, but one of the I don't know if this is in the book because I haven't quite finished it, but one I saw on the blog, one of the things that you did cook and you managed to procure it online was sheep's head.
Oh yes, yeah.
Allow Octopussy, and it's like, what on earth possessed you to try that? I don't think I ever would.
Yeah. Well, it's a one. I mean, that certainly is a once in a lifetime experience for me, anyway. well, I should just mention that the my previous book, License to Cook, just concentrated on the books, Bond books, food from Bond books, and the one difference with Double O Dining is that it includes more includes references and recipes inspired by food in the films, and actually when you start looking in the films, there's actually quite a lot of food. Now,
I was surprised when you mentioned that in the book, but you you did right.
Yeah, well, there's well, I mean, there's a bowl of fruit virtually in every film. There's yeah, I mean, Bond doesn't eat a lot of it, but there's food around, and of course, you know, we have a food is essential to the plot of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and End of Diamonds Are Forever. The villains get their just desserts. They, you know, the ending, their demise revolves around the food that's brought in, and so there's plenty of food, and I've drawn on that. Now the Octopussy is a great example, because there's lots of there's a great feast with Kamal Khan at his palace, and has we served sheep's head. Now souffle is in the book because I talked about that because souffle is mentioned in Goldfinger in the novel. Now the sheep's head came a bit. I did that a little bit too late for the book, so it's not in the book, but it's on the website. I'd already sent the manuscript to the publisher by the time I did the sheep's head. Now, this is the interesting thing about doing these recipes, that you realize something's not quite right about how the food is presented in the film. So with the sheep's head, it's stuffed sheep's head, but when I got my sheep's head,
it sounds delicious.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, yes. I mean, I opened the box and it was. I thought, is it going to be like a film 7? And there's a head in the box. And I felt, I felt very nervous about it all, and my wife refused to be in the house when I cooked it.
I don't blame her. I would have done the same.
I did. So I had to. I was at home on the day I cooked it, and she went to work, and I said, right, I'm going to just do it this afternoon, in that afternoon while she's at work. I'll get a photograph, and then I'll just throw it away. And so I did that, and I found some sort of, it was a bit slightly made up sort of recipe. There aren't, you look through old, well, it's only 83. You look through cookbooks, you aren't going to find many stuffed sheep's head recipes.
No.
But so I was just throwing
Jamie
my own.
Oliver doesn't have one.
No, I don't think so. No. But so I cooked it as best I could, and I sort of felt my way through it as it were. But anyway, there's nowhere really to put any sort of stuffing in there, because there's brain in the way, and there's also a tongue in the way, and I didn't want to start rooting around not to put too fine a point in it, in order to create a cavity. So and I suspect actually, because once you do that, then you destroy the head a little bit, and I suspect actually that the heads served in Octopussy weren't stuffed. I mean, you don't see the stuffing anyway, and so, but you know, it's just presented on the head is just presented on a plate of rice and some greenery, and that's basically what I did. And it looked the part. Now I did actually eat some of it. The basically the only food the meat on there is the cheeks. Yeah. And well, there's the tongue, but I didn't. I decided not to do that. So, but the cheeks actually were very, they were very tender and you know, tasty. I mean, I wouldn't, I'd perfectly admit that I enjoyed my sheep's head.
Okay.
But I wouldn't do it again.
Well, yeah, it's you only need to do that once in your life, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, yeah. So, but that's not in my. Unfortunately, as I said, it didn't quite make the. It was a bit late for the book, but it's it is on the website, and it'll stay on the website. Perhaps if I ever do a third edition, then it'll go in there, I think.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to the next edition. Apart from that.
Yes. As well. Standard. Yes. Well, I mean, yes. I mean, I suppose I could go into the continuation novels and the various recipes in there. But that's an interesting one because I found with the continuation authors that the food becomes far more fussy, and and actually it's always got to be the grandest, the most or sophisticated French food, and
Yes.
I think it's into excuse pun, it's the food's overdone really. In the novels, in the continuation novels, I find.
Yeah, I think that's where the films get Bond wrong as well, because it's with both food and drink. In Fleming's novels, he basically one of the keys is to eat locally, eat local produce and drink local booze.
Yeah.
And I mean, with the modern Bond films, okay, you can understand it more because of globalization and. There's virtually a McDonald's on every street corner wherever you are in the world. But when Fleming was writing, that wasn't the case, and so Bond had to eat whatever was available. And but equally, I think Ian Fleming was interested in the foods and drinks of the world as well, and it's one of the things that I think really shows in his writing.
Yes, it's that local flavour, which I think those yes, it's for his books serve as a sort of guide, if you like, to the foods of the places that Bond goes to, and yeah, it's sometimes what Bond eats is peasantry, that the stew that Bond eats, the ragu that Bond eats in From Russia to Love. That's you can't get any simpler than that, and this is it doesn't have to be 5-star food all the time. And I think this is where some of the continuation authors have gone wrong. And so we miss that. We miss that, as you say, those local flavors, those local dishes. And so yes, so tempting some of those. I haven't gone very far into reconstructing the food of, say, the John Garden novels or Raymond Benson, because yes, they're not quite what I'm after, really, in a way. But I think there's one exception. I think I'm quite impressed by the Anton Horowitz's efforts and the food in there, and I suppose with his most recent one with The Mind to Kill, there's no avoiding the fact that he had to have food that was essentially peasant food, was local food, simply because of where it was set. So in a way that captures the spirit, I think, of Fleming quite well. That's hasn't been so well captured in earlier novels.
And I just wanted to find out a bit how you got interested in cooking, because I'm a few years older than you, and so I don't really know how our school experiences compare. But when I was at school, it was like the boys did woodwork and metalwork, the girls did cooking and typing, and basically the girls were being lined up to join the typing pools of companies in the day before computers. And when I was first working, the company I was working for, about a quarter of the workforce must have been typists. It was a huge number of typists, and but with computers it kind of didn't work out at all. And now everyone needs to type, and and I wish that I could type better, because I'm at the computer every day, and I'm sure there are a lot of people in the same situation as me. And I also feel that cooking should be the same. And there's a different relationship here in Spain with food, I think, to the UK and US. It's a bit more like the French, and creating a meal from the raw ingredients is kind of is life here. But you mentioned that you became interested in cooking from your mother, and
Yes. I mean, I didn't. I mean, I'm not. I haven't had any training in cooking.
Okay.
And but I spent a lot of time in the kitchen. I didn't. There's no, when I was at school. I didn't do any any sort of cooking in that in any sort of formal sense. And but yeah, I mean, I mean, my mum was a good cook, and she and so I was around in the kitchen. As I was growing up, and just like anything, in any other, a lot of other life skills, you sort of pick these things up in a fairly natural sort of unforced sort of way, and so yeah, over time I learned how to cook, but I was interested in cooking as well. It just
how old were you?
Well, no, I suppose I was. I mean, must have been, I don't know. I'm not sure I can remember very much before I was about 10 now. So, but yeah, I mean, certainly 10, 11, 12. I was happily cooking away, and my parents would allow me to cook and everything. So it's I mean, it wasn't long before I was producing standard fare like spaghetti bolognese, which is of course a good Bondian dish, and shepherd's pie and things like that.
The first meal I learned to cook was spaghetti bolognese, and the only reason I really started cooking was because I had to. It was either that or starve, and but I think it was the only thing I could cook for a while, so I just lived on the spaghetti bolognese diet.
Yeah. Well, it's it's a good staple, and it's a standard student dish as well, and I mean, a lot of the food was just that sort of thing. I mean, I've never really done particularly fancy stuff, but I like my stodgy meals. Actually, I quite like pies. I like the sort of pasta dishes, all that sort of thing, and yeah, those are actually quite, the thing about cooking is actually it can be as simple or as complicated as you want, and actually that's what I like about when I'm on holiday, and going. I mentioned in my little biog bit at the end of the book, mentioned holidays to France, which I think must have been quite influential as well. That sort of the simplicity of meals. You just have a few ingredients on a plate, and you're relaxing, and you have and a bit of bread, and you really don't need a lot to make something look attractive and tasty. And you don't have to embellish it very much to produce a really good effect.
I've had some of the best food in my life in France. It's French cooking can be absolutely incredible, and it's funny because I think the French get a bit of a bad rap for being impolite and so on, but often I've had the chef come out and ask how the meal is, and in not a very expensive restaurant, and they've always been friendly. I'd say. I don't know if you agree or not, but whereas maybe Bond's spiritual home is Jamaica, the Bond food's spiritual home is probably France.
Yeah. Yes, I think you're right. He certainly displays a knowledge of French cuisine that he doesn't in other countries.
Because he says that the English food is the best in the world, but in fact I think he's kidding himself in that moment.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, I think it was taken with the surroundings of blades and perhaps trying to impress them. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, he's when he's in France, he knows what he wants. He's familiar with the local dishes. I mean, those in Goldfinger when he wonders about having the canal de brochet, the pike dumplings, in the on the banks of the Loire in this auberge. That's that's a local dish. That's you'll go to that region and you'll find restaurants serving canal de brochet, and actually you'll find them in the markets in prepackaged as prepackaged items. So these are so yeah, he's absolutely talking local food, like local tastes. But of course this also reflects Ian Fleming's experiences. He made many trips to France, almost annual, and he did that Goldfinger trip himself to Switzerland on numerous occasions. And so Bond knows where he stands. Well, with French food, he knows the culinary landscape, but he doesn't so much in America or Turkey. And there he needs a guide, and that guide comes in the form of Felix Leiter or Dr. Karen Bay to guide him in his food choices. Now he's not, and he doesn't have that in France. I suppose. I mean, Mathis doesn't act as that local guide for food because one is already there.
So yeah, you're thinking of Felix Leiter and Kerim Bey, and so there we've got Bond eating burgers and kebabs.
Yes. That's. I mean, in fact, before I came on here, I had a Bondian meal myself of burger and chips, burger and fries. So I felt, I wasn't. I was still in the zone. So that's good. But yeah, I mean, and again, that reflects time. We're modern readers are perhaps surprised at that. Yet he's having a burger, and he's having fries with that, and he's sort of several ice cream scoops and everything. And but I suppose actually this food wasn't around in Britain at the time, and for readers again that would have seemed, even burgers and fries would have seemed like some amazing meal. And of course, he has cornflakes for breakfast.
Yes. With cream.
And now I have tried it with cream, and it's revolting. That's one thing I do depart from Bond in that way. But yeah, so I mean, yes, at the time, burgers and fries were pretty unheard of in the UK, and I mean was that trip in the name of the book escapes him, but he has Maryland fried chicken. That might be Live and Let Die as well, but
I think it's Live and Let Die, yeah.
Yeah, Live and Let Die, that's right. And essentially KFC in a way, but of course, the first McDonald's restaurant didn't open until much later in Britain. First opened, and I think it was 1960s that the first Kentucky Fried Chicken opened. And of course, we know from the filming of Goldfinger that had the Kentucky Fried branch of Kentucky Fried Chicken in the background, as if it was some amazing thing. But actually, it was around every corner, and so perhaps it was a little bit amazing for British viewers. But yeah, so I mean, this is again, yeah. So even that sort of food, it's quite special at the time, and you get the sense that it's something that the Bond is experiencing for the first time, and therefore Fleming's readers are as well, and he has, and again Felix Leiter is the sort of go between the sort of facilitator of his Bond's food experiences in different countries, in more America in this case, and the kebab again in Turkey. Yes, again, I mean, of course, kebabs now, doner kebabs have become a byword for post drinking.
They're a bit more respectable here.
Yeah. Oh, right. Really?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
why.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's there are loads of Lebanese restaurants here, and you can order kebabs, and but they're not served as takeaway.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
sit down at the restaurant.
Yeah. Well, yes. I think I'm still looking for a sort of kebab that might meet with Karen Bay's approval. But
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a recipe in the cookbook for doner kebab, which is my sort of approximation. I couldn't be the absolute genuine article because I just don't have the equipment. And but yes, I think it's perhaps a little bit more authentic than these things one can pick up from street vendors parked outside a pub. So.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've had my fair share in the past, though. And okay, I want to move back to scrambled eggs because I love scrambled eggs, and the scrambled eggs James Bond are particularly good with the butter, but I think butter makes anything taste fantastic, and but I see people sharing their photos of scrambled eggs, and it tends to be kind of this desiccated scrambled eggs, which kind of horrifies me. And tell me, what would you recommend people cooking their own scrambled eggs? How are they going to get a semi-decent scrambled egg that isn't just this dried bit of almost omelette?
Yes. Well, I think be patient with it. Whereas an omelette can be cooked quite rapidly, scrambled eggs you have to take your time with that. So a very low heat, good amount of butter at the start, and well whisked eggs, and then just in the pan cook it slowly, turn it, but the secret is, as Fleming said, well, it's not so much a secret because it's in the recipes, but yeah, take it off the heat when it's still pretty wet, because it'll still be cooking, and that's shown by when you put more butter in, then that melts because there's still a lot of heat in there. It's still cooking, so you don't have to have it on even on the heat. So low heat, and then take it off when it's still pretty wet, and stir in the butter, and just keep stirring. Let it just as the heat draws out, it'll harden up a little bit, but it won't be desiccated. It won't have that sort of residue, that sort of watery look that you sometimes get with scrambled eggs.
There's a good French word for how they should be, but my wife speaks 5 languages, and I don't speak French, and so my pronunciation is pretty terrible. But so she always laughs at me when I try and say it. But it's something like perverse.
Yeah, perverse. Yes, that's how Anne Fleming's wife said that's how they like their omelettes, perverse, and it means. As I understand, means essentially like baby drool. So it's so yeah, yes, that consistency. But even, I mean, I like my omelettes quite moist as well. And so yeah, it's difficult to get, but yeah, I mean, you certainly don't want you certainly don't want anything that's such a little bit rubbery. So you can bounce. Nothing like that. But yeah, low heat. But remember to take it off before it starts to really set.
Absolutely, yeah. And let's think. What about? Okay, this fits in with the scrambled egg. What recommendations do you have for vegetarian fans of James Bond?
Well, actually, there are some vegetarian dishes in the world of Bond. I mean, vegetables don't get a lot of mentions in the books, and but I think they're there. It's just that they just come with the dish without too much fuss. Now in Thunderball, Bond has basically a vegetarian diet in shrublands, a health farm. So there's plenty of clues there, and I've got 1 or 2 recipes in my cookbook based on his shrublands experience. So there's vegetable soup, and
he wasn't particularly happy with that
no,
though.
it wasn't with habit. And actually, it's you need to add salt. The recipe because I had Alan Moyle's book, which is mentioned in the book that's mentioned.
Oh yeah.
In there, I've got that, and it has a recipe for vegetable soup. So I thought, well, that's going to be authentic. Of course, no salt is allowed in that recipe, and no oil. I think it's pretty good to have a butter or oil, some sort of thing initially to fry the onion and things like that if you're doing any sort of soup. But of course, there's none of that, and so it's basically water and the vegetables. So it's pretty bland. So I think you do need to add salt to that. But the there's in twice. It's a lot of tofu and rice. It's a bean curd and basically tofu. And so actually, we might think of Bond eating tofu. Well, he was, and
it's true. Yes.
Again, it's the authentic stuff. Again, it's the eating local and being guided to some extent in his food choices.
Yeah. So in fact, there he's eating vegan. So
yes,
so there are vegetarian and vegan options for James Bond.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're on doing one of these veganary or whatever month it is where you decide to go vegan, then actually there's options there in the cookbook. So I mean, and in the films actually, I mean the as I said, there's plenty of fruit, so yes, there are things that there are things for the vegetarian amongst.
Yeah, and there's just something else I wanted to talk about. We're running out of time, unfortunately, but let me just see if I can pull it up. Yes, can you see that?
So let's see. Hold on.
No, that hasn't.
No.
No, I haven't. Right, that's what I need to do.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Oops. Oh no. I'm completely out of control with this. Right. Okay. That's what I wanted to do. Let's full screen. Was it a month or no? A couple of months ago, 2-3 months ago, and you wrote a blog post about James Bond's kitchen in No Time to Die, and it featured it was just a YouTube featurette, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, and it didn't make the cut, or at least not.
No.
It didn't really make the cut in the film. Perhaps eventually there'll be some extended version, and then we'll have a. But
you managed to spot a few things there. And,
yes. Yeah. There's now on the looks like a dresser at the back there. There's various jars and things. It's you helped me with the identification of some of them. I think there's some Fortnum and Mason's tea or something like that in there. But but on the bottom there's a jar of Marmite and which is a yeast. Well, everyone doesn't know it's the yeast. That's it. It's a yeast spread. And in Britain, the advertising slogan is "You either love it or you hate it," and that's a Marmite effect. And that pretty much sums up No Time to Die as well.
Yeah. Let's be clear where we stand on Marmite. I do love it.
Yeah. Well, I haven't had it. I haven't had it for a long time, but I hate it. But I suppose I thought to myself, well, it's been a very long time since I've had it, so perhaps I ought to try it again. But yeah, no, I'm not a fan. I was more of a peanut butter fan, so instead of Marmite, I use peanut butter. But yeah, so there's Marmite in there. So Bond is a Marmite fan. There's other things in the kitchen like what appears to be Coleman's mustard. Where's
my camera? It's a tin of the powder rather than the pot. And just to the Americans watching, English mustard is pretty fiery.
Yeah,
it's nothing like American mustard.
Yeah, so in small quantities, use sparingly. I think is the like the
Yeah,
bentonite
yeah.
toothpick.
In fact,
Um,
about the Colemans though, I've always been a bit puzzled as to why Ian Fleming didn't mention Colemans, because I mean it's the standard English mustard, and because he was so fond of mentioning brand names, I've always been surprised that when he was talking about English mustard, he didn't say Colemans.
yes, yeah, that's it. I mean, yeah, there are some notable omissions in the books. I mean, this isn't a food thing, but mission. But I've always wondered why Ian Fleming never mentioned Brands Hatch Racing Track in any of the Bond books, because he would have been driving past it every, when he drove through Kent to go to Dover to stay at St Margaret's Bay. He would have passed the racing
Yeah,
circuit at Brands Hatch,
yeah.
and he was a bit of a fan of that sort of thing.
Well,
um,
he'd actually been involved with motor racing.
yes, that's right. Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. He
So when he was younger, so yeah, it's surprising. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway,
But
so but Commons is another one. Yes, you're right. I mean, that is a bit of a, but yeah, I think Commons is mentioned in the it's a John Gardner novel. It's probably got Forever in the title. Uh, Nobody Lives Forever, I think it is. Anyway, that's one where he's chased, he's pursued all over Europe. I think it's that one. Anyway, John Gardner has him concoct his dressing, a salad dressing, and we have a little bit of that salad dressing in one of the Bond books, in one of the Flemings. And anyway, we get a little bit more of a recipe in this John Gardner novel, and he specifies Coleman's. So so Coleman's does eventually get a mention.
okay, okay. And I had 3 props from James Bond's kitchen in No Time to Die, so I'll just gratuitously show the other one.
Oh yes,
I
yes, yeah.
think every home in Spain has one.
Yeah, and I have one myself, and I find it very yes, yeah, I do like, there it is. Yeah, yeah, it's so along with well, that's another coffee maker to add to the list of Bond coffee makers. So,
Yes.
in the books and the films. I wonder whether we can see lots of hats and what looks like some rope, but it could be a whip. I wonder if he was going for the Indiana Jones vibe.
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah, yeah, you should know.
Yeah, well, I don't. I have to say, whips and guns and things like that aren't the standard equipment for archaeologists. At least in
They're not. I'm shocked.
although and hats. So, I mean, we get actually even hats like that. I mean, we will wear, if outside, if in the field, we wear hard hats. So so yes, it's not quite as dashing. But yeah, so yeah, so that's, I mean, so it's the second Bond kitchen we've seen of Bond's kitchen. Of course, we saw Bond's kitchen in Live and Let Die. Wasn't a lot of food there, though I did spy a waffle maker, and it's a very modern kitchen, and it's whereas this one in No Time to Die is far more rustic and sort of casual. But everything was, as we know from the coffee maker in Live and Let Die, it was all very much state of the art. It looked like a brand new.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
Everything was unused and brand new. That's pretty much.
Yeah, he's not much of a cook. Yeah.
No.
Well, Edward, we have arrived at, well, it's just gone 1 minute past 9. So I said we'd do an hour. So I want to thank you for this conversation. We haven't taken any questions from the audience, which we got some feedback when there was the echo, which we managed to fix. So thanks everybody for chipping in there. But yeah, it's been fantastic to talk about Bond's food. And let me remind you, it is this book, 00 Dining, a James Bond cookbook, which I
I've read most of, but I tried. I was hoping to finish it before this conversation, but not quite there. But good conversation all the same. That there's sure to be more interesting things in that. If you're watching on YouTube, then if you just go below, there are links to get it on Amazon. Make sure you do that, because you don't need to cook, as I said before. It's just full of interesting Bond stuff, and Edward's writing is always interesting. I've been following him for a long time, and he does some great stuff. So thank you everybody for watching, and thank you, Edward.
Well, thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed myself.
Okay,
Thank you for the
thanks
comments.
a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.